And welcome to the Ahron Katzman Show. I'm your host, Ahron Katzman. We speak about your life, your money, and your investments. And as always, we're coming to you from the spiritual and soon to be financial capital of the world, Jerusalem, Israel. If you like this content, please hit the like button below. And if you've not yet done so, please subscribe to both the YouTube channel and the podcast. We're continuing on our voyage of entrepreneurship here in Israel. And it's my pleasure to bring on the show Ahron Glazer, who is the founder and chief marketing officer of Executive Media Solutions. He is also the founder and CEO of Executive Brown Tees clothing brand. And he's also host of the Executive Talk podcast. So I think he knows a little bit about entrepreneurship. Ahron Glazer, welcome to the show.
Ahron, it is fabulous to be here. Might I say, I don't know if anyone's ever told you this before, but you have like that natural knack and sound of like radio, podcast voice. I love it. I'm so excited to be here with you today.
I appreciate that. So first of all, let's just preface this by saying that there is a small chance we might have a little bit of technical difficulty, a little bit of freezing here and there, but it's hot here. It's really hot here in Israel right now, so a little freezing actually is not a benefit. But I'm bummed. Okay, so you do like 8 different things, and they're all your own businesses. Tell me a little bit about your journey towards opening your own businesses.
Sure. No, so look, this is going to be a completely candid and honest conversation because you asked, you wanted to know. So here we go from the beginning. My family and I moved to Israel about 15 years ago. We were living out in California. I grew up in New Jersey. My wife is from Chicago, and Aliyah has always been a dream of ours. And so we got here, and like all good Olim, we started exploring the job markets. Time and time again, for the whole shift of looking for what that role might be, experience in this and trying to figure stuff out, I just kept hitting like rejection over and over again for no good reason. Either that like I didn't know someone in the company, the CEO wasn't my brother's cousin. I didn't have the 5 years experience and they wanted 6 years experience, like there was a whole variety of things. And so at a certain point, I just said, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. I'm tired of trying to find my way working for other people. I am going to see what I can do on my own and see what experiences I can gain along the way. I've always had an appreciation for branding, storytelling, project management, and I decided that marketing for me was going to be that avenue and how I wanted to take that avenue forward for myself. And so I started at the very, very beginning. It was at a time where people understood the idea and concept that social media marketing is important, but no one really yet understood what it was, how it worked, what to do, et cetera, et cetera. And I did. So I decided that I was going to start as a freelancer, helping people manage their social media presence. And at that time, it was really just Facebook, Twitter, a little bit of LinkedIn. And I said, I'm going to help you. And that's what I'm going to do. So I started my journey. I built myself a website. I made myself my email signatures. I was all set and ready to go. And I put out my first post on LinkedIn and explained to people, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm excited. If you have any questions, please come to me. And with God's help, I landed my first client in a couple of weeks, and it wasn't anything big, but that's okay, right? I was starting my journey. I was starting my process, and I got into the hang of what was happening. And then I got another client, and I built another client and another client. And I realized that I could actually be doing something with this. But also I learned that my niche of social media marketing was not necessarily enough for what companies needed for their support. So I started to slowly include other services into my service. And this is where I started to grow from being a freelancer to opening up an actual company. So I made the shift, and it took some time. I don't want to mislead anyone. It took some time, but I eventually was able to open up a company and hire my first employees. And so what we did was we started to build out a program that included not only social media marketing, but also some content marketing and also paid advertisement. And, we started to build a whole thing that was working for our clients. We started going with that, and that was going very well. And then kept adding, and we added in, PR into that mix, and we added a variety of other business services and marketing services to help our clients. And we had clients in 8 different countries,
Wow.
helping them from A to Z across their entire marketing platforms. But as we were growing, I noticed a problem, that there was a flaw in the business model that we were running, right? And so our commitment to our clients was that we wanted to do everything for you, right? You don't have to think about it. You just give it to us and we'll do it all for you. But in order for that to happen, one of two things need to take place. Number one, we need to have the staff in order to be able to make that happen, which also means that we start charging a lot more for our services. And if we're not charging a lot more for our services, then we're going to run into a little bit of a problem. But if we don't have the manpower, then we can't keep growing. And so our company was growing. We had about 15 in-house workers working on clients across the entire spectrum, but our company wasn't profitable because every time we would take on more work, we had to onboard new people in order to manage that work, and the companies that we chose to work with, right? Because we didn't want to work with the big super brands. Everyone loves to work with Toyota and Coca-Cola, but for us, we found our niche working with startups and small companies and small brands that actually that actually need help in their growth, not just their advertising space. And so being that was the market that we wanted to work in, we were running into a problem where our company just wasn't sustaining itself, because every time we would take on more customers, we would have to bring on more staff in order to match the workload. And then it was just creating a whole problem with how we were going to sustain that company.
So that's really interesting. I'm going to cut you off for a second. One of the biggest issues that I see from small businesses is how to scale, right? How to scale your business where the small businessman wants control. We're a certain breed, right? We're not so quick to give up control. We have a hard time charging more. Like, you've hit on
And you
two of the
shouldn't, by
biggest.
the way. In other words, you shouldn't.
You've
People
hit
who build their
two biggest
brands
issues. So what
around
did you do?
themselves.
So what do you do?
Firstly, by the way, let me just say, you shouldn't necessarily give up control, right? People that build a brand around themselves, right? You are the brand. It's really hard to give away that brand to someone else, because then it starts to shift things around. So that's okay. I just want to preface that that's okay. We decided that it wasn't about me as the individual or us as our workers. We decided that we were trying to build a brand, right? And so it didn't matter, right, if we were sharing the responsibilities of our clients and of our management. That didn't matter, because it wasn't about us. It was about the company we were looking to build. However, that being said, was at a certain point, you're just like, look, I'm putting in all this effort. What am I doing that's actually going to be sustainable for continued growth? Now, for me, entrepreneurship is not necessarily about financial success, right? For me, entrepreneurship is the freedom to live your life in the way that you choose it. Okay. So I don't need to be a crazy wealthy entrepreneur, right? My choices as an entrepreneur could be, right, to spend as much time with my family as I want, to work when I want, to buy the things that I want, and not have to get stuck in making decisions about, well, can I afford this? Can I not afford this, etc. But scaling and growing is a huge challenge. But in that road of entrepreneurship, you also can't be afraid to evaluate your successes and your pitfalls, and to be able to then say, well, what am I going to do about it in order to shift? So we were at a pivotal moment of our company, and I decided that the flaw in the system was too hard to maintain if we wanted to keep the quality service for our clients. Okay. Right? Because I cared a lot about that quality, and if we couldn't maintain that quality, then we couldn't do it. So it was time for a shift. So I shut down that element of the business, and I decided to repivot my strengths into something that could be a little bit more sustainable. Now, one of the things that I realized managing an in-house team of marketers for other people is that the companies you work with also have very talented people that are part of their growth that could contribute a lot. And so why not try to take advantage of their skills and their strengths and their experience and put it to work instead? So this is the part where I shifted into a new business model. And I went from being the we can do it all for you to we're not going to do anything for you.
But pay us a lot of money.
And people love it, by the way. They love it. What I mean by that is I took on the hat of an outsourced marketing manager for startups, meaning that instead of working in place of someone else's team, I wanted to utilize that team for that company's success. You have people on their teams that have been working there for a long time, are very creative, are very innovative, know the company culture, understand what's going on, but sometimes that company just needs a little bit of help and support in figuring out what their next steps are. And so I would come in, I would start off my working with them, working with their C-suite team, their CEO, their CMO, their CFO, to develop and understand what the business model and plan of what they're looking to achieve are, right? Are they looking to just revolutionize their brand and grow a little bit? Are they looking to do a product launch for a new product that they're promoting? Are they a new startup and do they need help with a go-to-market strategy for their new locations? And then we would build out that business plan. And then from there, we would build out a marketing plan. And then I would step in as project manager for their team to help them accomplish the goals that they want to accomplish. Now, what this meant for me was a pivot in my entrepreneurship style, because I went from being managing it all to saying, I'm going to do things differently because I want to see different growth. And I was excited by that. And so that was the pivot into what is now known as executive media solutions, right? So now me as an individual and as a small team of freelancers that I work with when I want to work with them, we help early stage and middle stage startups create their next stage's business and marketing plan for strategy and revenue growth. And that's what brought me here today. And that's exciting. And we have amazing partnerships with wonderful clients that we work with today in a whole spectrum of industry, which is super interesting. I love it. Now, from there, a few other things came out of this stuff. One was I was having lots of conversations with people and we were learning amazing, interesting things. And so I said, what can I do to help concretize these conversations into learning opportunities for other people? And so from my conversations with people was born the Executive Talk podcast, which I host and which we've run for a bit and are on a little bit of a break and now are coming back to it. But the Executive Talk podcast is really just about getting to understand the processes of people that I've worked with or might not have worked with who are also in that same path of entrepreneurship and growth and want to be able to take their stories and apply it out for other people to learn from as well, which led to that next stage. And then a few other projects along the way.
And how did you decide you want to become like the next Donna Karan and get into fashion? Sort of look like her. Where did that all come from?
That's so fun. That's a wonderful question. Another output of my working was one of the things that I wanted to do to show appreciation to the clients that I was working with was I wanted them to join the executive media team, so to speak, right? And so I wanted to give them that leverage of joining executive status. That was the tagline that I had. Welcome to the executive status. And I made swag, t-shirts and cups and socks and, a whole variety of different things. And when I would onboard a new client, I would send them this care package of welcome to the executive status team. And people liked it and it was really good. And looking at it, I decided, I'm like, you know what? I actually really like that. Like, this is really creative. What else can I do with this, right? So I decided that, well, maybe I should prioritize this a little bit and start a small clothing brand that also allows the everyday executive to feel like they could dress up, feel comfortable, and do the job that they need to do, whether you're a mother or a father, a business owner, a manager, a worker, an employee, right? I wanted to create an opportunity that allowed people to put on a piece of clothing, look in the mirror and say, I got today, let's go. And so the executive brand tees clothing line was born. Now, this is one angle of where that company started. The other angle of where this company started was that part of my appreciation of entrepreneurship and working and speaking with a lot of people is that, and I'm sure you'll find this also, right? You're a financial manager and planner, right? You work with people, to help them understand what's going on. One of the biggest fears that I've seen people from holding themselves back of doing what they want to do is lack of, as they see it, enough finance. Part of what I stand on, like one of my platforms that I stand on, is that you don't need serious investment to do something that you want to do. There are ways to do it, right? You can find it. You can, if you're passionate and excited about something, there's a way that you can do it without big investment. Now, you might not know what those ways are, but the possibilities exist. And so part of what I'm doing is I'm building a test case for a clothing brand, which I started with zero investment, in order to be able to teach people and show people how you can build something out from zero into something that's profitable, exciting, and manageable. I talk with people and I show them the process that I'm going through in building out this clothing brand that literally cost me zero investment. And all the advancements that I've made along the way have been reinvestments of money that I've made from the sales of my clothing. And so it's been a really exciting journey.
When you grew up, because this is really interesting, because you said your process was basically because you couldn't get a job, you sort of fell into this. Did you have the bug when you were like a kid, when you were a teenager? Did you come from a house of entrepreneurs, or you really, really, literally just sort of, because of no choice, sort of fell into this, and then you've just run with this in many different directions?
I've always had a knack for creativity and for stepping up, right? So I was always a big believer of, if there isn't someone there to do it, so then go do it. And even if it's scary, like, okay, maybe that means that it's more important to be able to do that. So when I came to Israel, I had one of two choices to look at. Either I can look at it and say, the world is out for me. I can't do it. I'm just going to complain until I find something and whatever. And or I could look at it and say, look, the resources that I choose are my own. And if I can't make it work for, going down the traditional path, so then let me see what I could do with it. I've always been that person to step up when I could, even in scary times. That is, but I got to tell you, that's a trained response, right? Like it took me a while to get there, but there's nothing like staring down the barrel of, I have a family to support. What are we going to do? How are we going to make this happen? I can't live the alternative. So let's figure something out and make it happen.
So I can actually attest to the fact that you can step things up. We actually know each other for a long time. We lived in the same neighborhood and actually prayed at the same synagogue. And for lack of anybody to take the lead, you would often be the service leader in a congregation with a lot of old and cranky men. So talk about scary and still getting up there and doing it. I can attest to the fact that what he's saying, ladies and gentlemen, is very true. One final question, because you said it, and it's a point that I think all entrepreneurs need to understand, right? You mentioned that for you, entrepreneurship and having your own business is not necessarily about getting rich. It's about giving you the freedom with your time. I think it's important, and I want you to speak about it a little bit to sort of finish up the show, but there has to be a why, right? When you start your own business, when you want to go down this path, like, why are you doing it? It can be that you want to make billions of dollars, right? That can be, but right, to do it without sort of a why, an end point, it becomes a lot more difficult. Do you think that's true also?
I do think that's true. But before I answer that question, I'd like to turn that question a little bit back to you, because part of what you work with individuals and businesses, right, to help them attain this financial freedom, so to speak, right? For you, investment is not just about gaining wealth, but it's also, all right, it's also about appreciating the freedom that money comes along with, right? So how do you approach that? I'm going to answer this question, but I'd love to understand from you a little bit about how you see that attaining freedom and how it applies in the financial market more specifically than in the general business creativity world.
On I would say my own approach to my business and my approach to my clients is sort of similar, right? I'm a lot more like you, or what you alluded to at least. I always wanted to, I had a paper route and I mowed lawns. I always wanted to have my own business. I don't like bosses. Let's just put it mildly. But I always wanted to have my own thing. And part of it is because of freedom, right? It's not so that I can become a billionaire. That's not what drives me at all. It's so that I can do things I want to do, spend more time with my family. I know they're going to find that hard to believe, but children, wife, there's an alternative and it's a lot worse than what you have now. So I'm going on record for that. So it's obviously having the financial freedom to do it, but financial freedom doesn't mean that you're a multimillionaire. It means that you know that you have the money to do X, Y, and Z. And it's not to travel around the world and buy the fanciest cars and all those kinds of things. It's whatever you define sort of as financial freedom, right? It's to come and work late because you're training for a marathon, whatever it is, whatever, floats your boat, so to speak. I think for clients also, it's the same thing. It's to let them enjoy their retirement, how they want to retire. And it could be that they want to travel, but it could be that they want to study, and it could be they want to, volunteer at the botanical gardens, whatever it is, but to give them the ability to do so and to have the calm and peace of mind knowing that at least on the financial side of things, they're taken care of. That's sort of the way that I do it, and the same I run my business the same way.
In that regard, do you see yourself as an entrepreneur?
Oh, totally. I do, because I don't know how one defines an entrepreneur, but somebody who has their own business to me is an entrepreneur. So that's how I would sort of define it.
I feel like it's someone that decided to take their life into their own choices, right? Is that right? The choices that I make define who I am and what I do, right? And so if I want to be someone that can work some part of the day, exercise part of the day, run, volunteer, right? These are all elements of the choices that I make and allow for that entrepreneurial role, all right? And I firmly believe that you don't need to run your own business to be an entrepreneur. You don't, right? Yes, you're responsible for your financial goals, right? Being in that regard, but anyone who makes the choices to take control of their life and the direction that they want to take that life, I think absolutely could be an entrepreneur in that regard. And I think it's because of that, then either you want to live up to that challenge or you don't. And that's okay if you don't. And if you do, then you also have to then come to terms with the decisions that you make in order to get you to that point. See, you asked the question before, like, what's the heart that drives, right? And so for me, it has two elements to it. Number one is that understanding the struggles that exist for an Olet in Israel, right? And understanding that it's not necessarily easy for everyone to get, to do the things that they need to do. Being able to create a framework for individuals either to employ them or for other people that are starting their businesses and need help, right? To be a helpful hand in their success. I understand, I get it. And I want to be a support for people that don't necessarily know who to turn to, where to talk to, or however, whatever that happens to be. And so I want to be able to do what I can to support a community of people that are struggling and trying all at the same time, right? What the key for me is that trying. That's number one. Number two is that I genuinely appreciate celebrating success with other people. And so being in a position to allow a company, whether it's a small business of 1 or 2 people, or a company of 30 to 50 or 1,000 people, being able to celebrate successes with them that we were a part of and worked on together that show a growth, whether it was a brand growth, a revenue growth, a new team, whatever the success was that we were working out with them, I am genuinely excited and proud to celebrate that success with them and to cheer them on, to say, you know what, you can do it, keep it up. Yes, I had my role in what was going on, but look at what you've accomplished and look how much more you can accomplish. And so for me, part of the why of what I do is being able to share that enthusiasm with individuals and teams to say, we got this. Let's keep going. You're doing amazing. Let's change the world.
That's great. And one final thing, I want to go back to something else you said, because I think it's sort of inspirational. One of the reasons I started doing this is because we live in a country which is sort of titled Startup Nation, and everything about starting a business in the papers, right, in the media is about high tech, right? You work with startups, whatever, but there are a whole lot of people out there, most people out there, who have, for lack of a better word, old economy ideas, right? They want to start, they might want to start, iced coffee company or whatever, right? And these are all things that people consume, and there's plenty of room for all these things. And sometimes I think people get intimidated when they read, X software company just raised $50 million. And there's the whole concept of OPM, right? Other people's money. Yeah. And I think it's great that you're trying to sort of show people in totally old economy, right? T-shirts, clothing, that without raising $50 million, you can have a successful business. And I think that's really inspirational for people who, might have a yoga studio or whatever, and they're sort of intimidated, by the numbers that are out there.
Absolutely. And look, and it doesn't matter what industry you're in, because every industry has the opportunities. What you have to pay attention to is what are the resources you have around you. And resources count on my personal resources. What can I do personally to contribute to growing what I want? And what are the resources of other people or other situations or other things that are happening around me that I could capitalize on and benefit from in order to help that growth facilitate? And I think one of the biggest stumbling blocks that people face is that they don't take the time to appreciate the resources that they have to support them in their growth. My advice is anyone who wants to do something, it doesn't have to be high tech. It could be anything. Anyone who has something that they want to do and they don't necessarily know what or how to start, I am always happy to have conversations with people. And I invite people to have a conversation with me for free, to be able to talk out loud. Sometimes the biggest things that we lack is the ability to share our ideas with someone that will allow for springboarding opportunities to grow. And so I invite anyone to reach out to me, ask me questions, to chat with me. I'd be so happy to help think out loud with you about resources you might have available, what growth looks like, how do you plan for that growth? You talked about before about sustainability and scalability, right? How do you create that pattern when looking at growth? Whether you're a small business or a medium-sized company or even a large company, how do you fit within that realm? And I'm super happy to be available and to share that support.
So that's a perfect segue into how can people reach you?
Lots of different ways. I'm on LinkedIn, Ahron Glazer. I'm on LinkedIn. I am on email. You can send me an email, ahron@executivemedia.co. Those are probably the two best ways to reach out to me, send me a chat, say hi, introduce yourself, and super happy to continue the conversation.
And we'll put links to that on the show of the notes also, so everybody can find that as well. Well, this was great. I really like this. I like where we get a little bit more philosophical. So thank you for coming on the show. This was great.
Pleasure. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. You have been tuning into the Ahron Katzman Show, where we speak about your life, your money, and your investments. If you like this content, please hit the like button below. And if you've not yet done so, please subscribe to both the YouTube channel and to our podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll speak to you soon.